Tony, talk a little bit about Nighthawks. What is a Nighthawk?
So Nighthawk is...
It's right there.
Nighthawk!
You are listening to Urban Wildlife Podcast.
Hey, podcast listeners. We hope you like this episode that we recorded live in the Mount Moriah Cemetery at the border of the southwest section of the city of Philadelphia and neighboring Delaware County, in particular the town of Yeadon. Cemeteries are great places to observe wildlife. We encourage you to get out to your local cemetery and see what you can see. We had a whole two-part episode about it earlier called Humping Deer, Bearded Dragons, and Singing Toads. In fact, we checked with Ken Greenway from the Tower Hamlets Cemetery in London in England and noted that they don't have quite as many migratory bats as we do, or at least in his specific area. They do record some pipistrelles and the occasional noctole, as he put it. Also, in this episode, I realized that I cut off Tony when he was starting to talk about how wonderful the Friends of Mount Moriah organization is. I just want to emphasize that point, that this is a great space in Philadelphia and in Yeadon. It needs a lot of work, and the Mount Moriah Cemetery folks, the Friends there, have been doing some amazing work to rehab the cemetery, bring the public in for historical interest, for wildlife interest, you name it. So please check out friendsofmountmoriahcemetery.org, and if you're in the area, come and help out. Enjoy the episode. So we are at Mount Moriah Cemetery. We're here to look at some nighthawks and some bats. We just parked. It is around 7 o'clock p.m. It is just around sunset. It's very cloudy, so it's hard to see where the sun is exactly. We're going to do this episode field note style.
What's up? Something like that. Back there. Okay.
Prepared some notes on bats. Tony will talk nighthawks. We'll try to spot them here in a large urban cemetery. Technically, right now, we are in the suburb of Yeadon, which is literally across the street from Philadelphia.
Yeadon is kind of like Philly's Gary, Indiana. It's not really like a suburb.
We're looking at a herd of, 5 or 6 deer up the hill a little bit. Some of them are checking us out. Most of them are just heads down eating. So welcome back to another episode of the Urban Wildlife Podcast. This is one of your co-hosts, Billy Brown, with
Tony Crosdale.
If you want to get in touch with us, send us an email at urbanwildlifecast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at urbwildlifecast. And if you like the podcast, please rate us on your podcasting app of choice. And please tell your friends about it by any means possible.
Yes, we can't stress that enough. It really means a lot. It really helps us out a lot. And I know that I've done it far too infrequently for how huge a podcast fan I am, but I do make a point when they ask me to. I will like and tweet about or do something for a podcast that really does matter.
So right now, flying around, we've got some swifts. Those robins switching trees over there? Mm-hmm. Okay. With Magnolia pretending she's a bird. Trying to scare the deer. That's what happens when you bring a 5-year-old on your podcasting expeditions.
There's a young buck there, a Y buck. Yeah, there's like 10 deer at least.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about bats today. I wanted to say that we're going to talk about birds that migrate. We look at the nighthawks and the swifts. Bats migrate too, particularly tree roosting species. And in Pennsylvania, the tree roosting species that migrate are red bats, hoary bats, silver-haired bats. The ones that don't migrate and in turn hibernate are our pipistrelles, our northern long-eared bats, and our 2 brown bat species, little browns and big brown bats. And out west in the western United States and also southeast, Mexican free-tailed bats migrate. These are the ones that live in that enormous roost that's famous in Austin, Texas at the Congress Avenue Bridge. They head down towards the Mexican border and some of them south of the border into Mexico. In other parts of the northern hemisphere, you see this in northern Europe. There's 4 species that tend to migrate. Nathusius's pipistrelle, the parti-colored bat.
The party?
Parti-colored bat, P-A-R-T-I, because it's a 2-toned bat, but still, it's a party-colored bat.
I'm talking about. It's like half Jägermeister and half Red Bull. Colored.
Or Bacardi, because it's a bat.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 noctules, a regular noctule and lesser noctule. These guys, all these bats tend to migrate around 1,000 miles on their migration south, or up to 1,000 miles. A lot of them probably migrate shorter distances. Still, 1,000 miles is a long distance for a little bat. It is relatively hard to study migration in bats because you can't see them. They fly at night. A lot of them are too light for transmitters that you could put on them to do satellite tracking. Sometimes people ring them, but lately it seems the way they study them is with sort of isotope analysis of their fur, that they can see, depending where you are, your local water and soil and stuff will have a certain characteristic mix of certain isotopes.
There's a big buck.
Another big buck. A lot of deer. And what they can do is check the isotope ratios of bats that live in a place year-round, and then when they find a migrating bat, take a little bit of fur and see where it spent the summer. Fortunately for science, bad for bats, wind turbines in the North Sea apparently kill a lot of bats, and those are bats you can then sample, but it is also not very good for those bats because they're dead. So if you're listening to this and you are somewhere in the northern hemisphere, get outside, check your bats. We're going to use a bat detector to listen to their calls, which is another way you can sort of monitor bats. That bats will have distinctive frequencies that they communicate out or use for echolocation, and we can use a little bat detector to see who's calling around us once they're out and flying around. Tony, talk a little bit about Nighthawks. What is a Nighthawk?
So Nighthawk is...
It's right there.
Nighthawk! So, that was on time. So we got a Nighthawk flying over right now. So they're in the nightjar family, or the goatsucker family. Carpal something
Capra-mulgids or something like that?
Capra-mulgidae, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. So the people, probably at least in Eastern North America, are pretty familiar with the whippoorwill.
Yep, loud suckers.
And
I was kept awake at a campsite in Alabama by Chuck Will's widow.
Oh yeah, so those Chuck Will's widows, poor wills, whippoorwills, they perch on the ground. They're on a branch.
2 more.
And they have a wide, broad, short wings, and
we're looking at that black bird right there up in the sky. That is a nighthawk. It comes
to explode off a branch to catch a flying insect. But nighthawks have long, pointed wings. They resemble falcons, sort of, and they are aerial hunters.
And they migrate, right?
They do.
Because there's no bugs here in the winter.
Yeah. Warbles actually overwinter, and they go into a state of torpor, which is
a weird thing for a bird.
Yeah.
Now the Nighthawks, are the ones we're looking at now likely resident, or are they ones that have migrated south?
I do not know.
Okay.
It could be either. There's like 10.
There's like 10 Nighthawks. And where do Nighthawks sometimes nest in Philadelphia?
Very often they nest on top of flat row house roofs.
So these are birds you can see like in South Philly or in West Philly, just flying around.
Northeast
Philly the rest of the year. And if you are in a row house kind of city, keep an eye out for them also. And you can hear them making a characteristic ping noise.
Sometimes it gets confused with woodcocks that make a very similar noise, but you can tell the difference if you practice a little bit.
And so I had not seen any until yesterday in my entire life, or I just hadn't spotted them flying around me. And so Tony put me on this spot yesterday after dinner, and I was like, let's come back and record some of the stuff. Let's bring the family. Let's have some hot chocolate and some cookies and walk around and look at nocturnal flying fauna.
I think we post it right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the cemetery we're in is a somewhat neglected large cemetery. It's one of the old bucolic style cemeteries, so it meant to be out in the country before the city had advanced this far. But it's sort of fallen into disrepair due to management problems. So some of it is mowed, a lot of it is just overgrown, which makes it a fascinating place if you're an urban nature lover.
Yeah, a friend of mine is Paulette. Roan is the president of the friends group. I mean, she's a friend of mine because I would come here and then do walks with her, and now we're friends. She's
What are those little guys in the brush over there?
catbirds.
Catbirds, okay.
So they do a lot of work.
And the catbirds are going in between, sort of around the base of some Japanese knotweed, and then a plot across from Japanese knotweed, which has got tear thumb, white thoroughwort.
You got late flowering thoroughwort or late flowering boneset.
And then is that some fireweed in there too? What are those tall guys?
Yeah, it could be.
So a mix of natives and exotics. So it's
Goldenrods.
a funky place because you can have like each section of the cemetery will have its own flora. Like you have one section which is like all huge Japanese maples. The other section that's like all sassafras took over. It's just a weird post-apocalyptic kind of landscape where there's a lot of deer and woodchucks and fox and brown snakes and garter snakes.
It's pretty good. It's pretty awesome for birding.
Awesome for birding. What's really fun is if you see like a hawk perched on top of an obelisk or one of those angels.
Sometimes you run into death metal bands taking album cover photos. Not even joking.
I believe you.
So now our respective partners have caught up with us.
And you've seen your life for Nighthawks. Do you want to use the binoculars?
Wait, what? What's
So
happening? Is that what those are?
Yeah, those birds right there.
Yeah.
When I was here before, I found them. They would work back and forth. Right there, honey.
See the ones that are swooping over this tree?
Yeah, those are birds that are catching bugs in the air right now.
Okay, Angie, I'm
No,
sorry,
I'll give
but
you
I
yours.
actually think I win this one. They're a little bit like Batman. A little bit like Batman.
So they have a bat kind of fly. They're kind of flappy. Like so they'll glide a little bit, then they're like very flappy, kind of like a bat.
And they'll
they'll
kind
sort
of like pause and kind of like rock back and forth a little bit.
Yep, there goes one right there. And they have distinctive sort of white elbow patches. Ooh, ducks over there. Are those just mallards or are they something else?
Probably wood ducks.
Wood ducks. All right.
So Angie and I were talking about how evocative the term Nighthawk is, and we
Oh,
were kind of
yes.
imagining. And Angie, what did you say about it? You thought,
I thought perhaps the dragon from How to Train Your Dragon.
and I said,
He's named something night related, I feel.
oh, there you go.
There's one.
And I said I thought it would be something that was like Batman. So
So what it
It's
reminds
Nightwing, the
Yeah.
superhero.
So Batman is closer so far.
Oh wow, they're all over us. There's got 3 right above our heads right now. And so it also evokes for me a famous painting, I think Edward Hopper, Nighthawks at the Diner,
yeah.
which is one of my favorite paintings. That is right there, guys. Look at that. That's not a bird. Well, it is a bird that we can see more often if we know how to spot it. And these are
I saw what actually catch something.
so when you see them flutter around like that, they're like on a moth or something, and they're grabbing it out of the air. What I found is when it got a little bit darker than this, the bats really came out. So we're keeping an eye out for the bats.
Why do we care about nighthawks?
They're in decline. Most aerial foraging birds are in decline right now because insects are in decline. There you go. Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
it's beautiful.
Whoa, that one just buzzed us at about like 7 feet off the ground.
That nighthawk showed up to answer my question. I don't care about nighthawks.
That was a nighthawk, honey. It was right off. It was right by us. It must have seen a bug next to us. Oh my lord! That one again, like, it may be 10 feet off the ground there. We must be right below a cloud of interesting bugs.
Yeah.
But like, it's a topic of conservation importance that doesn't get talked about enough. Is that there's a general decline in the abundance of insects, and people attribute it to like pesticide use.
Right.
A lot of the animals sort of up the food chain from bugs then decline also. Totally worth the 7-minute drive from our house.
Wow. And we don't hear them though. They're not really.
They're not calling. Is
Because they're
that
not territorial right now. Because I mean, they could maybe make a noise here or there, but this isn't their breeding season, so they're not either trying to attract mates or scare other ones away from
No.
the territory.
Why?
I don't know how to catch them, honey. And I'm not sure that we would want to. We'd probably hurt it.
They're very little.
You could
Birds
catch it.
in general are not for catching.
They're only about the size of a robin, maybe even. There's one in Brazil called the Nagunda nighthawk. It's much bigger. It's significantly larger than this, and it's really cool looking.
So we're hearing a mockingbird.
I think the first mockingbird nest described in Pennsylvania was in Mount Moriah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're usually more of a southern nesting species.
And they moved. Now they're like ubiquitous in our area.
Yeah, I see them all over the neighborhood.
mockingbirds, Carolina wren, black vulture, red-bellied woodpecker. They're all southern birds that now live up here.
Nice.
Good work. Useful.
All right, Tony has switched on the bat detector. Nothing much right now, but I bet pretty soon. And I remember if we might mosey back towards the car a little bit.
Tony has, this is for the bat detector.
That can hear the bats talking.
It's listening for bats.
So that they're usually sounds that we can't hear with our ears, but it takes them out of the air and turns them into a sound that we can hear.
So this is Angie's first time on the podcast.
That's a good point.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angie.
But it's
there
definitely
goes another
not
Nighthawk.
the two of you's not your first time.
Now Magnolia's been on.
Especially Magnolia. Yeah.
Ooh, that is a nice
Magnolia's
Nighthawk.
sort of been a special guest. I have yet to find my...
Good spot for brown snakes too. Although they cleaned up a lot of the dump sites, which then made it harder to find the brown snakes because I'd find them under trash.
It's a shame.
You have no idea what it was like. Like not even 10 years ago, Billy and I would come here before. Like brown snake, there was like literally mattresses that were probably placed here for business purposes.
Okay.
They were here for business purposes, the mattresses, but it turns out they were excellent cover for snakes.
That's great.
Might as well mention something really quick. Tony, you got any events coming up?
At the Environmental Center?
Just in general, any appearances, etc.?
I'll be at the John Hines National Wildlife Refuge Nature Fest, Philadelphia Nature Fest on October 14th.
And when's that big birding festival or birding meeting?
Oh, the Philadelphia Bird Expo, which is next weekend. No, the 29th, 30th, and 1st.
And you're going to be recording people there, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Hopefully, yeah.
And I'm going to be, it turns out I'm going to be talking at a Schuylkill Environmental Center event on October 7th, their University of Nature. We're going to have a discussion about urban coyotes. Oh, we got a bat. Wait.
There it is. 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 Yeah, right there.
Tony, what is it?
Sounds like a big brown, but I'll try to get a better recording.
Oh, there it is. Probably got a big brown flying around us. What's the model of the bat thing? Bat detector?
Echo meter touch.
The Echo Meter Touch. So now Magnolia is chasing the bat.
Bats are always together.
Oh, there it comes. God, it's so cool. So what we're seeing is we're in a part of the cemetery which is very savanna-y. Like there's a line of trees to one side, there's patches of trees here and there across the hillside. And there's a bat flying around us, off the ground of course, but around us among the trees. And that chirping you hear is the translation of the echolocation. Oh, there's two.
Yep, there's another
Now we
one.
got two flying around us.
Two.
Oh man, they are like 10 feet above our heads right now.
Big brown bat.
Big brown bats. So these are not the migrators, but they are some of our local bats. So it's a neat night to check them out along with the Nighthawks.
So I had 4 species the other night at Cobbs Creek, Environmental Center.
What'd you see?
I had red bat, big brown, silver-haired, and hoary.
Nice. I think, did we just say that the silver-haired, the hoary, and the reds are migratory?
We are in Cobbs Creek. This is
Yeah.
we're standing 100 yards.
The actual creek is a few yards from us.
right.
And Tony's Environmental Center is up the creek a couple mile. Maybe a mile.
Cobbs Creek is a great place for bat lovers. Tony will have more bat nights.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to wrap up our bat walk. If you want to record or tell us about migration of birds or bats wherever you are, please write us at urbanwildlifecast@gmail.com. Please rate us on your podcasting app of choice. Please tell your friends all about it. And Matt Haley would get mad at us if we did not say that if you see a dead bird in your city that died running into a window for migration, it's a very sad thing. But put it in a plastic Ziploc type bag individually if you find more than one, because you don't want to mix up their parasites. And get it to your nearest natural history museum or ornithology department at a university, because these guys will be valuable for sampling for researchers and that kind of stuff. It would be valuable for data collection for researchers.
And you might want to just contact your local game enforcement agency to let them know that you're doing that, just to cover your bases.
Yeah, don't do anything illegal in the process.
Yeah. Don't, and especially if it's an eagle or something like that. And Matt Halley, again, is who sings the podcast part of the theme. He's
an ornithologist who's been on the podcast a few times.
Also wrote a couple of our songs, including Synth Organism, the music.